discrimination and why we should still be aware of it. Rosa Parks once said, "Racism is still with us, but it is up to us to prepare our children for what they have to meet, and hopefully we shall overcome." According to research done by Harvard University, race oftentimes tends to be a limit to many people because it often tends to make boundaries for in order for them to be either socially accepted or economically successful. I feel that we live in a generation where racial discrimination was taught to us by events that occurred prior to the time that we were even born. So events how people fought for their equality and fought for their rights, and what they don't teach us is how racial discrimination is still an issue in our lives today. I know that all of us here have either seen or have been part of some type of racial discrimination, whether it was done to us personally or someone that we knew. And today I'm going to focus on how racial discrimination limits the lives of many individuals and why we should be aware of it. So what is racial discrimination? Racial discrimination, according to the Human Rights Commission, is when a person is considered less by another individual who is in the same situation, whether it's either by their race, by their color, or simply their ethnicity. Oftentimes, it's considered racial discrimination when an individual is subject to unequal treatment just because of their race, and it's either because the other individual believes that the person receiving the unequal treatment isn't considered as representable as they are. And oftentimes that tends to limit the individual and cause them to believe that they aren't as equal as the rest of the other people in the group or so. So now we ask ourselves, how does racial discrimination affect many people in society today? So racial discrimination is still an issue in California itself, and it's seen as a very controversial issue, like we still hear about it in the news. And according to the U.S. Equal Employment Commission, racial discrimination, as you could tell here, race was like the biggest issue, like over everything. And even though there's still laws, there's laws that say like, people should not be discriminated at jobs and things like that. They shouldn't be discriminated, and they're whether it's the way they're paid or the way they're hired or when they receive promotions. And there have been many cases that due to racial discriminations, people tend to think that it's they decide to file lawsuits. And according to a newspaper article in the LA Times in 2012, a group of African Americans filed a lawsuit against the United Airlines, saying that they had been promised that after a certain amount of years they would receive a promotion, and they started realizing that after they overpassed the years, no promotion was given to them. And they believed that it wasn't fair because people who had been working in the same area as them and had been working the same amount of hours had already received the promotion, but yet the group of 24 African Americans had not received their promotion until they decided to file a lawsuit. And when the United Airlines responded, they said that it wasn't because of racial discrimination, and it wasn't because they believed that it was unfair. They just said, they responded back by saying that it was because this certain group of 24 African Americans had just not met the requirements, yet all the other people who have been working the same amount of hours had already received the promotion. And there's many issues like this that happen like on an everyday basis that we don't hear about them, and it just shows us how racial discrimination is still a huge issue. And I feel that we should be aware of it and like find solutions to try to fight back to it. So now I explained to you guys what racial discrimination is and how it still affects the lives of many people. And now I want to talk to you guys about why we should be aware of it. And I feel that coming from a background where racial discrimination is like part of our everyday lives, I feel that like we tend to accept racial discrimination as an everyday living type of thing, because like many people tend to shut themselves short because they believe that, oh, racial discrimination, it happens to everyone, so we don't have like an idea, we don't have the support group to fight back. And according to a book by Annie Barnes, she talks about how teenagers like our age oftentimes tend to they don't express themselves in a way of like when they receive racial discrimination, they oftentimes like say like, oh, well, it happens to them, or it's like everybody's already used to hearing the same stories over and over again, so nobody's gonna pay attention. And in her book, she like lets individuals write their experience and put all their feelings in it and say like express how they feel about racial discrimination and express why they think like how it's oftentimes limits them from being themselves. And she in the book, she quotes how racial discrimination isn't seen as an issue in our lives anymore. It's kind of more of an everyday way of living, and that's why many people tend to be like, oh, racial discrimination isn't as important. And I feel like we should all be aware of it and like at least take acknowledgement of it, like whether it's done to us or someone, like we should be there as support groups or stuff like that. And so I hope you guys have a clear understanding of racial discrimination, and guys have become aware that we should stand up for it and not just ignore it. And I hope that with this you guys got a clear understanding of it.